If you've been watching professional wrestling long enough, then you know that sometimes a wrestler comes along that catches your eye, and you know right off the bat that they're destined for greatness. Whether it's in-ring skill or oozing of charisma and confidence, or on rare occasions both. And in the case of AEW wrestler Sammy Guevara, it's both. When AEW was founded in 2019, they made a promise to fans that they were going to offer something new and fresh, and that included showcasing wrestling talent that maybe the larger wrestling audience hadn't seen before. And Sammy Guevara was one of the first signings that AEW made that represented the ideology that they were being built on. They took someone who had a relatively small following on the independent scene and gave him a platform that allowed him to become one of the more popular and well-known wrestlers in the entire promotion. And a lot of this can be attributed to him being a part of Chris Jericho-led wrestling faction, The Inner Circle. For the longest time, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara seemed inseparable, until they weren't. Over the past year and a half, AEW told an excellent story that built to this moment. A bittersweet moment that maybe you already knew was coming, but you weren't quite ready for. But in the case of Sammy Guevara, the time had come, and there's no looking back. This is Tranquilo Club, and this is a defining moment for Sammy Guevara. From the very beginning, it was very clear that AEW had big plans for Sammy Guevara. Sammy would make his AEW debut at AEW's first show, Double or Nothing, where he would have the first singles match in company history in a losing effort against Kip Sabian. Despite losing in this match, Sammy would have a good showing and show the world just a small taste of what he was capable of. But then Sammy got an even bigger opportunity. It was announced that he would be in the first ever AEW Dynamite match against Cody Rhodes. That's right, professional wrestling was returning to TNT for the first time in 18 years, and Sammy was trusted to be a part of the first match that people would see upon wrestling's return to TNT. This was the opportunity of a lifetime for the young and talented Sammy Guevara, and he made that opportunity count. In front of a near 15,000 rabid audience, Cody Rhodes and Sammy Guevara tore the house down in the first match in Dynamite history. Despite losing, Sammy completely won the crowd over in his showing against Cody. He was showing more confidence, more swagger. He just seemed to be more in his element this time around. And he had to be, because later that night, his career was going to change forever. During the now iconic ending to the first ever episode of Dynamite, we would see the formation of the Inner Circle as they took out the Elite. The Inner Circle, made up by Chris Jericho, a debuting Jake Hager, Santana and Ortiz, and you guessed it, Sammy Guevara, would make a huge statement by taking out the Elite and establish themselves as the biggest threat in AEW. Just by associating themselves with AEW World Champion Chris Jericho, the four men in this stable, Sammy Guevara included, were elevated to a whole nother level. But it was the dynamic between Jericho and Guevara that started to win the AEW crowd over, despite them being heels. From the moment Jericho proclaimed that Sammy had the appearance of a Spanish god, it became clear just what kind of bond the two would form together. Sammy would say himself that he saw Jericho as his father figure in wrestling, and Jericho would proudly embrace that label, taking Sammy under his wing as they would tag together under the name Les Sex Gods. And as a tag team, they were pretty good. They even worked their way up to a tag team title shot that they would ultimately lose in the end. But Sammy and Jericho had the strongest bond in the Inner Circle, probably outside of Santana and Ortiz. They had hilarious and memorable moments both in the ring, backstage, and in pre-taped segments. Being Jericho's right-hand man made Sammy a mainstay on AEW Dynamite, and he was heavily featured on the show almost every week. And with that, his popularity grew. Besides just being Jericho's right-hand man, he started gaining his own personality, like with the cue cards. Also, his YouTube channel where he vlogs weekly started to grow in popularity, and this is where people started to realize just how good Sammy is as a personality. We were able to see a side of him that maybe we couldn't see every week on Dynamite, but that we saw glimpses of. Also add to that he would always be delivering in the ring during his matches. Guevara developed one of the most exciting in-ring styles in the entire promotion, but not just that, he was able to adapt. It didn't matter if he was wrestling someone smaller or bigger than him, because he was always up for the occasion. In short, what I'm trying to say is it was evident that Sammy Guevara was one of the best young wrestlers in the entire world, and the fact that he was was under Jericho's wing meant that he was only going to get better. He frequently got the chance to main event Dynamites, have prominent positions on pay-per-views, and even main evented AEW's most successful pay-per-view to this day, Double or Nothing 2020, when the Inner Circle took on the Elite and Matt Hardy in the Stadium Stampede match. Within the span of 1 year, Sammy Guevara had went from being on the pre-show at Double or Nothing to being in the main event. And the beautiful part was, it didn't feel forced, it all felt earned. Sammy Guevara had earned his spot to be there. He had established himself as a regular and prominent figure in AEW, and it seemed like the sky was the limit for Sammy. Everybody knew that it was eventually going to be his time to shine, but the more he waited, the more it seemed like time just passed him by completely. The Inner Circle began to feel a bit directionless. They didn't feel like a force to reckon with like they did back when they had first formed. What they needed was something to rejuvenate them, and Jericho thought he knew exactly what that was, and that something was MJF. From the moment MJF announced his intentions to join the Inner Circle, Sammy Guevara was the one guy who wanted nothing to do with it. Sammy was just like everyone watching the show at home. He knew that MJF couldn't be trusted. And while at first he had gained support from Ortiz on opposing MJF from joining the Inner Circle, eventually MJF would win over the members one by one, including the most important one, Chris Jericho. And because of this, Sammy felt inclined to just give MJF a chance since he had already won everyone else over, but he was still skeptical. And I mean, how could he not be? When MJF was first trying to win over the Inner Circle, he got every member their own custom jackets. But of course, something was wrong with Sammy's. It was like 3 sizes too big. And as a viewer of the show, you just couldn't help but think that MJF was just messing with Sammy at this point, since he was the only one who was showing any opposition to him joining. And the great thing is that Sammy wasn't oblivious to this. He knew that MJF was up to no good, but he just had to roll with the punches because at the end of the day, Jericho wanted MJF to join the Inner Circle. And when MJF defeated Jericho at Full Gear, it became official. He, along with Wardlow, joined the Inner Circle, much to the dismay of Sammy. And over the course of the next few weeks, Sammy's suspicions would begin to grow even more. While MJF would continually try to gain trust from the others in the group, and actually succeed in most cases, Sammy would begin to feel left out in his suspicions on MJF. Especially because Jericho had embraced MJF so much, and it almost appeared like he had replaced Sammy with him. They started tag teaming together and climbing the rankings, and they even got their own mixed theme song, something that Les Exgods, Sammy, and Jericho never got. And the more the other guys ignored Sammy's complaints and concerns, the more isolated he felt. And this came to a head on the special December 2nd, 2020 episode of Dynamite Winter is Coming, where both Sammy and MJF competed in the Battle Royal for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And through most of the match, they seemed to be on the same page. That is until MJF eliminated Sammy Guevara. But it was done in a way where MJF could say it was a mistake because he couldn't see Sammy. And that's exactly the excuse that MJF ran with. And whether it was an accident or not, Sammy was pissed. On the very same episode, Chris Jericho had a one-on-one match with Frankie Kazarian. And during the match, there was a moment where it looked like Chris Jericho was in trouble, so MJF came down to ringside with a towel in hand. And just as it seemed like MJF was gonna throw in the towel for Jericho, Sammy Guevara came down and stopped him. But as Sammy ripped the towel out of MJF's hand, Jericho turned around to see Sammy with the towel in hand. Upon Jericho seeing this, he was so distracted that he almost lost the match, but he did end up winning in the end. But he did cut a promo afterwards telling the Inner Circle that the next week on Dynamite they were gonna sort out their differences or else the group would disband. And so the next week came and the group did question MJF, but in the end most of them decided to forgive him. But Sammy did give the rest of the group an ultimatum. He said that if anything, just one more thing happened with MJF, that he would quit the Inner Circle. In order to release their frustrations, a 3-way tag team match between the members of the Inner Circle would be booked a few weeks later. For the first time ever, we saw Santana and Ortiz versus Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager versus Chris Jericho and MJF. And in this match, Sammy Guevara was dominating. He was running wild. It was almost like he had a point to prove. And just as it seemed like Sammy was gonna pick up the win for his team and hit MJF with a go to hell, Wardlow got involved and cost Sammy the match. And even worse, it was MJF that pinned him while pulling on his tights. At this point, Sammy is so fed up with MJF, but MJF still goes up to Sammy backstage and tries to explain himself. But Sammy tells him that he's not stupid, that MJF might have everybody else fooled, but not him. This prompts MJF to smugly ask Sammy if that's how he really wants to play it, to which Sammy very seriously replies, "I'm not playing." The next week on the special episode of Dynamite Beach Break, MJF and Chris Jericho end up winning an over-the-top rope battle royal to earn a shot at the tag team titles at AEW Revolution. Now this battle royal was also a match that the other tag teams of the Inner Circle were in, including Sammy and Jake Hager. So when Chris Jericho is seen backstage celebrating, he tells the Inner Circle, "We did it." To which Sammy replies, "Did we, Chris?" This prompts Jericho to tell Sammy that they were the collateral in order for Jericho and MJF to win. And Sammy is fed up. He says, "Why are they always the collateral? When are they gonna win?" He's basically sick of being the side piece to Chris Jericho, so he walks out of the room, and Chris Jericho walks out after him, trying to make amends. As Jericho leaves the room, MJF tells the rest of the group that it's time they have a talk, and they close the room on the cameraman. And the audience is left wondering just what MJF is going to tell them. Is he gonna try to take over the group? Is he trying to turn them against Jericho? Whatever it was the audience was thinking, Sammy was thinking it too, as he would confront MJF about this the very next week. And as it turned out, this would be the point where Sammy Guevara had had enough. Sammy would walk into the Inner Circle dressing room and ask the other members of the group for a moment alone with MJF. Sammy confronted MJF and told him he's not stupid, he watches the show, so what did he tell the other members? He asked if he's plotting to take over the group, just like the audience is assuming. MJF then calls out Sammy. He says if he's jealous because ever since he joined the Inner Circle, he's become Jericho's favorite. He then asks Sammy if he's really the one who wants to take over the group and if he's the one who really hates Jericho. To which Sammy sarcastically and mockingly says, "Yes, I'm the one who wants to take over the group. I hate Jericho." He tells MJF if that's what he wants to hear, and MJF says, "Actually, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to hear," as he picks up his phone from the table next to him as he reveals that he was recording his conversation with Sammy. Sammy, clearly pissed off by this and knowing what MJF plans to do with it, takes his phone and smashes it against the wall and gut punches MJF, leaving him scrambling on the floor in pain. Later in the night, MJF and Jericho have a tag team match against the Acclaimed, and the Inner Circle are all at ringside, except for Sammy. Jericho and MJF end up winning this match, and afterwards the Inner Circle are all celebrating in the ring. And then Sammy's music hits, and he comes out. Jericho gets on the mic and asks Sammy what's going on. He hears that he's punched MJF and smashed his phone, and now he's late. Sammy responds to Jericho and tells him, "I told you on December 9th that if anything happened with MJF again, that I would be done. And now I'm here to tell you that I'm done. I'm quitting the Inner Circle." He says this to the dismay of everybody in the group, except MJF. And instead of all the other members beating down Sammy for leaving the group, which is one of the biggest cliches in wrestling, they just let him walk away in heartbreaking fashion, because they might be heels, but they're not completely evil. They're still people. They're characters with depth, and instead they're left wondering if they were being bad friends to Sammy. And there's a very nice touch here as well. As Sammy is walking away, instead of exiting through the heel tunnel, which he had come in through originally, he pauses for a moment at the top of the ramp and then chooses to leave through the face tunnel, cementing his change of character, his change of heart. Because characters in AEW actually go through changes. They grow, they react to the situations they go through. This is where it made sense for Sammy's arc to go to next. He felt he was ready to take a leap on his own now, but it came in bittersweet fashion. Since the very first episode of Dynamite, Sammy has been associated with the Inner Circle and Chris Jericho, and now he's stepping away from that. Here's a guy who was always going to be a heel, who has now been turned into a sympathetic character because of this excellent story he's been in. Not only is Sammy ready for his solo run, but so are the fans. They want to see him succeed as this babyface. And I've seen a small section of people say that Sammy should never be a babyface, but to that I say check out his vlog, because this guy comes off as one of the most genuine and likable people in the business. The stuff he does for his fans is why he has such a loyal fan base. After leaving the Inner Circle, Sammy would say he would be taking a break just to think about things for a bit. But what awaits him when he returns is a fan base that's gonna cheer him like crazy now, and a massive feud with one MJF. A feud that will surely span many years and that will one day be contested for the AEW World title. This was a defining moment for Sammy Guevara. It's always a big deal when a young star steps away from a group, well, that made him a star, because it means they're now ready ready for bigger things, and Sammy Guevara has been ready for bigger things for quite a while now in my opinion. And the crazy part is, Sammy is only 27. He's gonna be around for a long time, and his singles run has only just begun. Whether he's face, heel, he'll be a future pillar of AEW for sure, and he's certainly a future AEW World Champion. Because Sammy has it all: the charisma, the talking, the look, and the in-ring skills. And as his theme song says, it's now time for him to take flight.